The room fell silent, the weight of unspoken thoughts pressing against the walls. He took a deep breath, his voice steady yet raw. You know, there were times I thought I couldn't go on. Times I felt lost, like God had turned away. But in those moments I learned something. Faith isn't about always feeling strong. It's about leaning in when everything else is crumbling. Lily's wide eyes locked onto his, something shifting in the space between them. It's okay not to have all the answers right away, he continued, his tone both firm and gentle. Life is a journey. We each walk our own path. What matters is that we keep searching, keep questioning, and never lose that spark inside us. The room, once filled with uncertainty, now held a quiet reverence. The question that had once felt so heavy had transformed into something else, a bridge between past and future, between doubt and belief. As he finished, a hush lingered before a wave of quiet applause and tearful nods. It wasn't just the words that moved them, it was the truth behind them, spoken without pretense. The fellowship hall, once a place of whispers and hesitation, now pulsed with warmth bound by an 8-year-old girl's bravery. There were times I was angry, he admitted, his voice unwavering. Times I wondered if God had given up on me. But faith, it isn't about having the answers. It's about trusting there's a greater purpose even when we can't see it. His eyes found Lily again, her fingers slowly loosening around the worn edges of her grandmother's Bible. And God, he said, his voice quiet but strong. He's that purpose. He's the voice that tells us to stand up when we fall, to climb even when the ladder shakes beneath us. A single tear slipped down Lily's cheek. The crowd stirred, murmurs rippling, but no one interrupted. Her mother placed a comforting hand on her back. "It's okay, sweetheart," she whispered. Lily shook her head. This wasn't sadness. It was something deeper. Trump had spoken words she hadn't known she needed, words that had touched a place inside her she had long guarded. He noticed, stepping away from the podium, his expression uncharacteristically soft. "What's your name?" he asked gently. "Lily," she managed, barely above a whisper. He smiled faintly. "That's a beautiful name. And you know, Lily, sometimes the hardest questions are the ones that matter most. They remind us of what's truly important." She nodded, eyes brimming. "My grandma used to say that too," she whispered. And in that moment, something unspoken passed between them. Something real. Something lasting. She said God is always listening, even when you don't hear him. Trump's expression shifted. Something unspoken flickered in his eyes, a blend of admiration and understanding. He inhaled deeply, turning his focus back to the crowd. "You know, this little girl just asked the question that most adults are too afraid to ask. What does God mean to us? It's not an easy question because it forces us to look inward. It makes us confront our fears, our doubts, and our imperfections." The room was utterly still, the weight of his words pressing down on everyone. In that moment, Lily was no longer just a little girl clutching a Bible. She was something more. A reminder, a symbol of the faith people often questioned but rarely spoke about. Her courage had shifted the evening's tone, transforming a simple town hall into a deeply personal reflection on faith, doubt, and the human condition. Trump's voice softened but remained steady. "We live in a world where we're always searching for answers outside of ourselves. We think power, success, or wealth will fill the emptiness, but they don't. The real answers are the ones that make us uncomfortable. They force us to ask, what do I stand for? What do I believe in? Who am I when no one else is watching?" His eyes returned to Lily. "Thank you for reminding me of that, Lily. You're wiser than most adults I know." A soft applause rippled through the crowd, but Lily didn't seem to notice. Her tears had stopped. In their place was something else, a quiet, unshaken pride. She wiped her cheeks with the sleeve of her dress and looked up at her mother, who met her gaze with tearful eyes and a proud smile. As the applause faded, Trump's tone shifted again. There was a sense that this conversation wasn't over, that something deeper was coming. The room grew quieter still, as if the very air was holding its breath, waiting for his next words. He shifted slightly at the podium, scanning the faces before settling his gaze back on Lily. A heaviness had settled in his expression, one that came from somewhere beyond politics, beyond speeches, beyond anything rehearsed. When I was young, he began, his voice lower now, I thought I had it all figured out. I had ambition, drive, plans for success. But there was one moment, just one, that made me realize how little control I actually had. He paused, letting the words sink in. The crowd leaned forward, drawn into the unexpected openness. Trump was known for his confidence, his certainty. Moments like this, where he let his guard down, were rare. My brother Fred, he continued, was one of the kindest, most genuine people I've ever known. He had a light about him, a goodness I didn't fully understand at the time. But Fred struggled. He had his battles, and no matter how much we tried to help him, it wasn't enough. His voice caught slightly. He cleared his throat before continuing. When he passed away, I was angry. Angry at him, at myself, at God. I couldn't understand why someone so good with so much potential had to leave this world so soon. Lily's wide eyes stayed locked on him, her young face etched with understanding beyond her years. Across the room, others listened just as intently, their expressions mirroring the quiet impact of his words. For a long time, to nod, exchanging quiet glances as if something deep within them had been stirred. It wasn't just a political event anymore. It was something personal, something real. Trump looked around, taking in the faces before him. Some were tearful, others contemplative. These weren't just voters, not just supporters or critics. They were people, each carrying their own doubts, their own struggles, their own hopes. He exhaled, the weight of the moment settling on him. You know, I've met a lot of people in my life. People who've built great things. People who've lost everything. People who've fought battles no one else could see. And the one thing I've learned, the strongest people aren't the ones who never doubt, never struggle. The strongest are the ones who keep going, even when everything in them wants to stop. Lily, still holding her grandmother's Bible, watched him intently. Trump gave her a small nod before turning his attention back to the crowd. I don't have all the answers, no one does, but I'll tell you this. If you keep asking, keep searching, and keep believing, even when it's hard, you'll find what you're looking for, and sometimes you'll realize it was with you all along. A stillness hung in the air, not the kind of silence that begged to be filled, but the kind that meant something had truly resonated. Then, slowly, someone clapped, another followed, and then, like a wave, the entire room erupted into applause. Not the usual polite kind, but something deeper. A release, an understanding, a moment that would linger far beyond that night. Lily's mother pulled her close, pressing a kiss to her forehead. The man in the back, the one who had spoken up, wiped at his eyes before looking down, nodding to himself. And Trump? He simply stood there for a moment, letting it all sink in. For once, it wasn't about politics. It wasn't about power or strategy. It was about faith, about people, about something bigger than any one person in that room. And as the applause carried on, as voices rose in quiet conversations of their own, he knew this was why he kept going. The energy in the room was no longer just about one man speaking. It was about everyone there, drawn together by something bigger than politics or policy. It was about humanity, about faith, about the unspoken struggles so many carried but rarely voiced. Lily's mother bent down, pressing a kiss to the top of her daughter's head, whispering something that made the young girl beam with quiet pride. The older woman who had spoken about her late husband wiped away a tear, nodding to herself as if, for the first time in a long while, she had permission to hope again. Trump stepped back from the podium, scanning the room, absorbing the moment. For all the speeches he had given, all the crowds he had addressed, there was something different about this. It wasn't about winning or persuading. It was about being present, about listening. about reminding people that even in their darkest moments they weren't alone. A man near the front, a veteran, judging by the way he held himself, stood up, clapping slowly but with conviction. One by one, others joined in. Not the usual roaring, rally-like ovation, but a steady, meaningful applause that came from a place of deep understanding. Trump nodded once, the hint of a smile crossing his face. Then, with a final glance at Lily, he gave her a small but knowing nod. "Keep asking questions," he told her. "The world needs more people like you." And with that, the evening didn't just end. It lingered. In the whispered conversations that followed, in the way people looked at each other differently, in the way faith, doubt, and hope had woven themselves together into something real. As Trump stepped off the stage, he knew this was a night that wouldn't be forgotten. That was a strong and emotional conclusion. The story has a great flow, building up from a simple question to a powerful moment of connection and reflection. The way Trump interacts with Lily and the crowd feels sincere, and the final message leaves the audience with something meaningful to take away. Would you like any tweaks to the whir?